Thank you, John. It is great to be here and really, really special to see such a great turnout for this tonight. I hope it's meaningful for you. It's a delight to be here. So, I stand on the shoulders of greatness. My grandfather in Indiana was a charter subscriber to Rodale's Organic Gardening and Farming magazine when it came out in 1945. A lot of people don't realize that post-World War II, there was a huge tension in the country whether we would go chemical or compost. And he chose compost. And I remember as a little child going up there and enjoying his garden and his big tea trellis, grape arbor around it, and the verdancy of that, and it never left me. So Dad wants to farm. But Grandpa never farmed. He aspired to, but he never got there. Had a big garden, but never farmed full time. He wanted to. Dad wanted to farm full time. So what does a Midwest boy, no money, no land, do? And he said, well, after World War II, he flew in the Navy in World War II, GI Bill, got his degree in business economics, and then got his Spanish, and went as a bilingual accountant with Texas Oil to Venezuela, South America. Said he was already tired of the socialism and communism in the U.S., so let's go to a developing country where it's smaller government and a more open market. So he went to Venezuela. 7 years, saved up enough money to buy a 1,000-acre farm in the uplands of Venezuela, and got married. And we had we had us two boys. My older brother, 3 years older than me, started raising chickens. And very, very quickly took over the local chicken market because our chickens were much cleaner than the indigenous birds that all had sub flu or congestion, that snot on their beaks, and so our chickens were clean, and of course we immediately got accused of being voodoo practitioners and black magic, and were ostracized by the local farmers. So when there was a junta in 1959 and the ouster of Pérez Jiménez, we were subjected to what happens when there's anarchy and you set the scales right. And so the machine guns came in the back doors. We fled the front door, and we lost everything. And came back to the U.S. Dad was 39. I remember when I hit 39 thinking, if I lost everything, would I start over again? And he went, wait, the older you get, the better he was. And so then we come to me. And so in our family, so I've got several little, tidbits I want to really punch home to you. In our family, we say it took 3 generations to get there. So my first point is, sometimes this takes a while. Some of you are later in life coming to this, in your 50s or even 60s. And if it's too late for you, be someone else's launch pad. It's okay. There are plenty of young people ready to run with this. Be their launch pad. So we ended up coming to Swoope in Virginia, the Virginia Shenandoah Valley. Found the most gullied rock pile in the community. In fact, there was not enough soil to hold up electric fence stakes. So Dad mixed concrete in wheelbarrow, got used car tires, and put the concrete in the car tires, pushed a 1/2-inch pipe down in there, and then he'd pile these concrete car tires up on a tractor platform and drive slow down through the field. And my brother and I, we were little kids, and we could get on one edge of that and heave these out so he could go along and put electric fence stakes in those 1/2-inch pipes so we could build electric fence. So we didn't start with fertile land, and so Dad started asking everybody, how do I make a living on this little farm? We had both government people and private counselors. Every one of them said, plant corn, buy chemical fertilizers, plow. We've lost 5 feet of soil over 100 years of plowing. There's no more to plow. If you plow, all we get is rocks, and there's not even enough soil to plow up. We had large areas, half the size of this tent, that were just solid rock. There was no weeds, no grass, no nothing, just solid rock. That's why you couldn't put up electric fence stakes. And so he had enough understanding to know that that was not right. So my second major point is stay away from all conventional advice. My mentor, Alan Nation, founder of Stockman Grass Farmer, used to tell me, if you have an idea and go to your neighbor and present your idea and your neighbor says, that's a good idea, don't do it. But if you present your idea and the neighbor says, that's the stupidest, off-the-wall, crazy thing I've ever heard, do it. That's probably your answer. So listen to people who are doing what you want to do. We need, the meritocracy starts with who we get advice from. I think it's interesting throughout the kings in the Old Testament. You know, it oscillates one king to another. This king made the people sin worse than they'd ever done before. And the next one says the people made the king sin worse than any king had done before. And the fact is that we choose who we listen to, don't we? And so we have to make that choice with discernment. One of my most poignant childhood memories, I don't know how old I was, 7, 8 maybe. Dad announces one day, he says, let's take a Sunday drive. I've found out about this farmer. I don't know where he was. It was, an hour away maybe. And I want to go visit him. So we jumped in the car. We went on this Sunday drive down to visit this guy. And what he had was mobile field shelters. I don't know what was in them. Sheep, pigs, chickens. I have no idea what was in them. What I remember was coming home and Dad literally levitating, driving the car. It's kind of hard to levitate when you're driving the car, but he was levitating over the idea of mobile infrastructure. That was a breakthrough because suddenly now you were not stuck to a place. And so point number 3, land ownership and management are two completely separate businesses. You don't need to own land to farm. Land ownership is defensive. You have money, you put it in land, that holds value. There's nothing about owning land that makes it profitable. What makes it profitable is how we manage that land. So if you have mobile infrastructure, if your farm is mobile, your customers are mobile, everything about your farm is mobile, you don't have to own the land. That's a breakthrough. Suddenly a young person can start farming on land they don't own and build a business that has long-term viability, because if a deal goes south, you just pick up your farm and you move it somewhere else. Late 60s, Dad was fixated, being an accountant, he was an accountant, he was fixated on leaks, on financial and value leaks. If you've ever studied the lean business practices from Japan, you know that slippage and leakage is a huge deal. And so, here we were with these rock piles. We would have thought we were growing thistles for a crop. When we made hay, it was like a snowstorm with all the thistle blossoms and weeds. And, the fertility was so low that when I started raking, about the first thing a farm kid can do, is rake hay. The mower is a little bit touchy. The baler is really touchy. The rake, just get on there, boy, and make circles. And I well remember having to put 16 rake swaths together to make a little anemic windrow. Today, 2 of those rake swaths make a windrow you can't jump over. Same field, same everything. And so Dad realized we need to stop the leak. So one of the first things he did in the late 60s was designed a shade mobile. So we didn't lose our manure under the trees. Trees are one of the biggest fertility dislocators on our farms. And so I'm a huge believer in portable shade. We need to tell that animal, I want you to put it right there. So we started moving the shade mobile on rock piles, on brambles, on thistles, on things. And in one day, without planting a seed, we could convert that by the next year. What was a nothing but thistles and ragweed was red clover next year. All it needed was a different management system. So, number 4. The key is to stop leaks. What are the leaks on your place? Leaks of time, leaks of money, leaks of fertility. Where are those leaks? Stop those leaks. So then in the early 70s, I get some chickens, and I'm growing my little chicken business with eggs. Need to sell them more, and we had a leftover curb market in town, leftover from the Depression era. This was a precursor to today's farmers markets, called the curb market. And by the early 70s, when I was 14, it was down to 2 elderly ladies. Well, we joined that curb market, and so there was these 2 elderly grandmas and me. And they took me under wing, showed me how to display things, message on a chalkboard, deal with customers, happy customers, unhappy customers, those things. I wouldn't trade that for $1 million. And they shepherded me all through. So every Saturday of my teen years, I was up at 4 o'clock every Saturday morning to get my stuff down there to Curb Market, which opened at 6 o'clock. And we ran that till I graduated from high school. So number 5. Direct marketing, become the middleman. It's a big deal. And this got us acquainted and circulating in the community to create brand awareness, farm awareness, and a direct consumer to get the retail dollar to become the notorious middleman where all the money is. During this time, we never had a TV, still don't have a TV. And one of the things that happened during that time was, you got to realize my mom was a high school health and phys ed teacher and very athletic. My older brother was very athletic, gymnastics, football, different things. And I was what you call a slow bloomer. And I wore Huskies and was pretty pudgy, and I'm going back to that level now. But I say I'm a good brood cow. I can just look at ragweed and keep my weight on. So seventh grade, I go out for I've got these, this athleticism in our family. And so I go out for the baseball team, the second kid coming on, you got to keep up with the big ones. And I didn't make the team. 8th grade, I'll go out for the basketball team. I didn't make the team. That was before today when everybody makes the team. But I'll never forget in 8th grade looking at that second rejection and making a point, because by that time I had won several speaking contests, essay contests, spelling bees, different things, and knew that I excelled in communication and writing. I would write for fun. We didn't have a TV, so I would write fiction stories with number 2 pencil and a spiral notebook just for fun. And I made I remember it like yesterday, making a mental point, looking at that sheet saying, that's it for me, forget sports, I'm going where I'm good. And I joined the debate team and then entered the theater, drama, public speaking, extemporaneous speaking, forensics, all that sort of thing. So number 6 is reduce your distractions and leverage your strengths. It's so easy to get distracted with other people's expectations or what you think other people expect you to do. And what happens is you fritter away your life meeting somebody else's expectations instead of leveraging your passions, your skills, and your interests. You'll get a lot farther leveraging their strengths than trying to fix your weaknesses. Fixing your weaknesses means collaborating and partnering up with people that are strong where you're weak. Don't try to fix your weakness. Find somebody who's strong where you're weak and build a partnership with them. Well, then I'm out of college. I married the most frugal wife you could imagine. Very talented, the quintessential homemaker. We were high school sweethearts. When I was 16 and she was 15, she made me from scratch a suit. She can fix and sew anything. She'd can 800 quarts of stuff a summer. If we didn't grow it, we didn't eat it. And so number 7 is find a compatible partner. In You Can Farm, I have a chapter, the number 1 failure of family enterprises is inconsistency, incompatibility of vision between husband and wife. And we are different. But you have to come together. You have to be willing to come together and see what works as a partnership. One is a cleanie, one's a messy, one's a starter, one's a finisher. One's One's a saver and one's a spender. Our big one is one's an extrovert and one's an introvert. But you have to come together on these things and figure out what you can both live with. So we lived cheaply. We fixed up the attic in the attic apartment in the farmhouse. We didn't call it an attic, we called it a penthouse. We lived on $300 a month, drove a $50 car. I drove that thing for 3 years. We took our honeymoon in it. It was a 1966 Dodge Coronet, 3 on the column. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And kept that thing for 3 years and sold it. It threw a rod at 3 years, and I sold it to a guy for parts for $75. That's the way I like to sell vehicles. No depreciation, appreciating vehicles. By living this cheaply, we saved half of my paycheck, and in 2.5 years, we're able to accumulate enough to live without a paycheck for 1 year. That was our grub stake. Because remember, when you're living on $300 a month, you don't need a whole lot. It was about $10,000 that we saved. And Dad, in an accounting practice, was doing accounting for a Mennonite family. And so September 24, 1982, I left the newspaper and came back to the farm full time. And it took us 3 years till we could exhale and say, okay, I think we're going to make it. But they were the happiest years we ever had. We did everything together, and it was just us there on the farm. No money, but full life and great food. Well, Dad had a Mennonite family that was a client of his. Our nest egg was about out. We were pushing. We didn't know if we were going to make it in year 2. And they raised broilers so they could have their own. They raised about 400. They sold 300 live and kept 100 for themselves so they could have their broilers free. They were getting up in age. They were looking for somebody in the Mennonite community to take over their little broiler deal, satisfy their 17 customers, and nobody would step up to the plate. And they knew us, knew me, and approached me. I said, yeah, I'd be glad to do that because I had chickens when I was a teenager, and I'm glad to do that. So we took over their little fledgling business and jumped into the broiler business. I pulled down my old chicken shelters I'd had when I was a teenager for egg layers, took the nest boxes off, and put meat birds in them, and launched the pastured poultry business. So number 8 is just start. Nobody thought I was wise when I left that paycheck. We call that the golden change, that paycheck. But jumping off that and leaving it and starting was the best thing we ever did. Dave Ramsey talks about the proximity principle. Get as close as you can to where you want to be, and it'll come along. And so our goal was not to feed ourselves 100%, but to employ ourselves 100%, generating a full-time living. That was our goal. It was a very simple mission statement: make a living on the farm. So that meant when we developed the Eggmobile, the run behind the cows, we were not satisfied with a 50 chicken or 100 chicken deal. Very soon we made a second one, and then we made them attached together. We were running 800 in the Eggmobile. Now we were having to supplement with our farm feed, but suddenly instead of going out and gathering 5 dozen eggs, I was gathering 40 dozen eggs. Now you actually have a living. There's a tension there between just feeding yourself and actually making a living. And so this efficiency was enabling us to make a living. So number 9 is you can't save your way to success. You can't save your way to success. Eventually you have to make money if you're going to make a full-time on your small farm. So when I left the newspaper, we decided, Dad was an accountant, remember, so we decided to incorporate for tax reasons. So we developed the Polyface brand. That was one of the only times I really crossed Dad. Dad, he said, well, we'll just be Salatin Incorporated. I said, no, Dad, there might be a day when a Salatin isn't running this. This is bigger than us. And so we came up with Polyface, the farm of many faces. And so here we were, 1987. Dad had gotten very ill. He died in the spring of 1988. And 87, we're just 4.5 years into, we're over the hump. We think, we're going to make it now. And Dad calls me from the bedroom, and he says, bring a pencil and paper. Okay. So I come in, and here we are. Remember, we're just 4.5 years. We're just over the hump. We're just starting to breathe. And he says, I want to spend some time brainstorming on how many salaries we could generate on this little farm. And I've still got the little yellowed piece of paper in his handwriting, one of my treasured things, and wrote down 22 salaries on our little farm. At that time, it was 90 acres. And you know how many salaries we generate today? 22. Goals that aren't written never get attained. And so early on, we were thinking about a glass that was half full, not half empty. It was about abundance and not scarcity. And so we're rocking along, and we had a customer named Clinton Miller, no relation to John Miller, as far as I know. And he was a great customer, and we had raised some pullets for a lady who decided she didn't want them after we raised them, and we had all these eggs. And what do we do with all these eggs? And so we're running, buy 10, get one free, this sort of thing. He comes down to pick up chickens. At that time, all our sales were just at the farm. You had to come to the farm. We weren't delivering. We weren't selling off farm. You had to come to the farm to get things. And he comes in, sees that sign. He was outraged. This is unconscionable. This is like giving away diamonds. You got the best eggs in the world, and you can't. He just went off. He said, give me 30 dozen. All right. Sell them to me. So we sold them. And 2 days later, he calls me and says, can I come down and get 60 dozen? Absolutely. 2 days later, he calls, says, can I come down and get 90 dozen? Well, this picked because he was, he and his wife, they were empty nesters, and they weren't eating 90 dozen eggs. So curiosity killed the cat. I said, what in the world are you doing? He said, well, it turns out he was the lobbyist for the National Health Federation, so he was wining and dining. He was taking legislative assistants and senators and congressmen out to dinner all the time. And he would always take these eggs, take them into the restaurant to the chef, and the chefs would come running in. Where did you get these eggs? I've got to have these eggs. So he presented to us, if you'll grow them, I'll sell. How soon can you get me 600 dozen eggs a week? Just so you know, it takes about 1,000 layers, which is that's very doable. You can do 1,000 layers on about 5 acres. Move them around. It's not bad. And so I said, well, it'll take us, 5 months to grow them and a month to get through the pullet stage. He says, well, you do it and I'll sell them for you. And in the meantime, we'd been turning away young people who wanted to come and apprentice and learn these things because we just didn't have enough work for them. And this, we dovetailed, we can start the egg business and start the apprentices all at the same time. So we did that. And so point number 10, if you serve, God opens doors. Devote yourself to service. You got to make money, you got to make margin, that's true. But if your first goal is serving, somehow God makes a way and opens the door and rewards that. And so that's where we were. And so we started the apprenticeship program, which enabled us. The first apprentice wanted us to rent a farm. So he put that together for us because he wanted something more to do. We wrote Pastured Poultry Profits because everybody was wanting to know, how do you do this chicken thing? Began speaking at conferences and things and getting attention from New York Times, Time Magazine, and things like that. So number 11 is the domino effect of synergy. When you start and you have a successful enterprise, and you dovetail it with another one, the chances are if you have one that's successful, another one will be too. One of the problems is that we're not dedicated and patient enough to work through to get one enterprise really successful and profitable before we launch another one. And then we're always on this rat race of chasing, and we never really become masters and develop something. Just to show the value of that, for example, when I say move chicken shelters, that phrase move chicken shelters on our farm now with our stewardship and apprenticeship program, that phrase move chicken shelters has a 6-page typewritten standard operating procedure manual with it. Move a chicken shelter. 6-page typewritten SOP. Okay? That's mastery. Knowing the nuances and being able to teach them. That domino effect. And so all these other things began developing. Well, then we had these ladies from Maryland that came down. And they were about 4 hours away. And once a quarter they would come. They'd call. We were going to come down and get stuff. And so this went on for about 18 months. And we loved these ladies. I mean, they'd buy a lot of stuff when they came down. And about 18 months in, one of them pulled me aside. She said, we got a lot of friends. And I'm thinking, I think I'd like to meet your friends. But she said, they won't come. You know, we try to carpool. We've given them price lists, all this stuff, and they won't come. What would it take for you to come to us? Well, we were very happy on the farm. We didn't want to go to them. But we realized the opportunity, and I gave them a figure, and within a week, they had the orders, and we began delivering. So number 12, take the opportunities that present themselves. We always say, we want to say yes and figure out how to do it. Unless it's something that's really incompatible with our mission statement, we want to say yes. Our first delivery driver had a T-shirt that his business card, when he handed it to you, the business card, the big statement on the front was, the answer is yes, what's the question? But so many of us, aren't we? We're so intimidated, we're reluctant, we're scared, we're fearful, we're whatever, and our first reaction to opportunity is, it can't be done, it's too hard, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I'm not wealthy enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough land, right? Say yes. So then we developed the stewardship program, and that allowed us to move into number 13, which is duplication with succession, all right? And we believe that a workable farm requires at least two salaries from two different generations. So we're rocking along, and we have a cult of local food cult. I don't ship anywhere. That's one reason we were in Michael Pollan's Omnivore's Dilemma, and because we wouldn't ship him a T-bone steak, and he was angry because what is this little pipsqueak farmer turning down a New York Times reporter for? And so after he got over his anger, he got on a plane, came down, visited us, spent a few days, and realized that it was something different. And so then we became, a third of his Omnivore's Dilemma book as a result of that. But things began to change. And the logistics of distribution, butcher box, the door-to-door delivery, began changing the retail marketplace. DoorDash, Uber Eats, all those kind of things started developing there in 2017, 16, 17, 18. And so we began wrestling for customers. Why should I drive out to the farm over potholes on a dirt road when I can just sit in my jammies and order it on the computer and get it delivered to my door from Butcher Box? Nostalgia's fine until it's obsolete. So, July 4th, 2019, we began shipping nationwide. And we left the cult of the local. Or we actually decided that the U.S. was local. So number 14 is, what got you here won't get you there. And if you want a great marketing book, read that book. It is fantastic. What got you here won't get you there. Most of us are so stuck in the past that we can't imagine adjusting to and adapting to a future. And certainly that's been because change is hard. We love routine. We don't like our routine upset. We don't like to learn new things. We don't like to have new schedules and new things. And certainly I'm feeling that now with, we started a podcast. I started that with Dr. Sina McCullough, Beyond Labels. Then I started a blog. My blog is Musings from the Lunatic Farmer. We started a video curriculum called Farm Like a Lunatic with a videography group down in Tennessee. All these things were not my world. I don't even have a smartphone. So I'm a caveman, a true caveman. Okay? But obsolescence is no fun. And so to stay relevant, to stay current, I've had to team up with other people who have skills beyond mine to shepherd me through these things. So number 15, and finally, is hook your train to an engine going somewhere. I always tell people, I'm not that smart, I'm not that good, but I've been blessed to be able to hook my train to people that are going someplace. And if you can find somebody who's going someplace, my dad used to say, everything that we do, everything to us should be a burning bush. And the world still turns aside to see a burning bush. And if you can create burning bushes in your life, the world will step aside to look at it. So hook your train to an engine going somewhere, and you'll be surprised where you go. So today, I feel like a Cinderella. You know, most of my life I've been in the ashes. Not invited to the party. And then suddenly you wake up and here's Maha. And here's RFK Jr. And here are people. And here are people wanting you to speak and write and communicate. So all that years of writing and struggling and trying to communicate with our customers and articulate what we do, the philosophy that we do, the story that we do, all of that suddenly becomes relevant to a culture that's ready to disentangle from the system. And so now we realize that our goal, our driving objective now, our mission statement remains the same, to develop economically, ecologically, and emotionally enhancing agricultural prototypes and facilitate their duplication throughout the world. That's still our mission statement, but we realize that an adjunct part of that is to actually create hope and help when our culture becomes hopeless and helpless. That's our objective. It takes time to develop the competence, the capital, and the collaborators that can help us get to those places. And I've been blessed in my lifetime to simply not quit. Alan Nation used to say, somewhere you have to dig deep and enjoy the slog. Every day is not 70 degrees and puffy white clouds and green grass. And somewhere along the line you have to dig down to your mission statement and your vision and enjoy the slog. And that is how you develop competence. And that takes time. You can't Google experience. It takes time to develop the capital to be able to leverage opportunities. But if we'll just continue living on less, that's where I stand on the shoulders of greatness. 3 generations in a row lived below their means. Most Americans today live above their means. Half of Americans today can't put their hands on $400. Half of households in America can't put their hands on $400. That's what you call living above your means. So living below our means enables us to accumulate capital, which then enables us to invest in opportunities that come our way. And then developing collaborations take time. It takes time to weed through the people that write you a bad check, to read through the bad engines, the bad opportunities, and to vet the people that will not take you where you want to go and find out what are the characteristics of culture, community, and collaboration that will carry me to the next level where I want to go. It takes time to develop that competence, capital, and collaborations. But if we will patiently persist, my dad used to say, if at first you don't succeed, just suck and suck and suck until you do suck a seed. But that takes time. But there is a huge blessing. That rainbow at the end is the paycheck for those years of developing the competence, the capital, and the collaborations. My mentor, Alan Nation, again, next to my dad, he was my greatest mentor. He said, everyone should aspire to arrive at a point in their life when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do because you have partners that have been delegated everything that you don't like to do and you're not good at. And I'm really close to that. So thank you for visiting down memory lane for me and letting me share my story with you. We don't have all the answers, but we've found some. And I hope that some of this is encouraging and inspiring for you to realize it doesn't happen in a day, but you string today well together, tomorrow well together, and the future will be bright for you too. Thank you for letting me visit with you.